A 7-Eleven Scrapbook, Supermarket Moments and Memories by Peter Weisz, 2021. In 1951, my parents, both Hungarian Holocaust survivors, immigrated to the United States, along with their 4-year-old son, me. Thanks to a series of fortuitous events, my father, Zoltan, soon found work in Indianapolis, working for these men. Leon Frisch and Leopold Frankovitz operated a successful chain of 9 Stop and Shop stores in Indianapolis. These were the first modern supermarkets established in the city. Leopold came from the same village in Romania where my father and I had been born. In fact, it was my grandmother who had helped finance young Leopold's journey to America back in the early 1920s. He owed my father a favor, and so agreed to hire him as an assistant produce clerk at 80 cents per hour. My father's employment began at this location, at 34th and Fairfield in Indianapolis, bagging potatoes and trimming corn. 20 years later, in 1971, we purchased this building and established our 6th 7-Eleven supermarket. By 1957, Zoli had worked his way up the ladder at Stop and Shop and was serving as the head produce buyer for the entire company when it was acquired by a Georgia-based corporate chain known as Colonial Foods. My father decided it was time to move on. Gambling all he could raise and borrow, Zoli, along with his 2 partners, Benzion Mendelsohn and Harry Frankovitz, leased space in an abandoned Kroger store at 2947 North Sherman Drive and opened their first supermarket. Since most competing stores were open from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., the partners decided to open 1 hour earlier in the morning and stay open 1 hour later. Hence, they named the business 7-Eleven Supermarket. The store was an instant success. Over time, the name was changed to 7-Eleven Supermarkets, Double 8 Foods, and finally to the Fair Deal Food Market before closing its doors in 2015. 7-Eleven grew rapidly. In 1958, the partners acquired this historic location at 46th and College. The Art Deco building was built in the 1930s, and it was home to Indianapolis's first Kroger store. Here we see the 46th and College location in 2013, operating as a Double 8 food store. Here's how it looks operating today as the Next Door American Eatery. It is currently closed due to COVID, but is slated to open on April 15th of 2021 this year. Looking inside, we see the original 7-Eleven sign, which now serves as a decor piece inside of the restaurant. The partners opened their 3rd store at 29th and Northwestern Avenue, today called Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, in 1959. The first 500 customers coming in the door for that grand opening each received 4 pounds of bacon. This is William Hawkins. He was named manager of the new store. He was the first African American to work as a supermarket store manager in the state of Indiana. Mr. Hawkins studied law while working at 7-Eleven. He went on to enjoy an outstanding career as a prominent Indianapolis attorney. He served on the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the Office of Federal Contract Compliance, and most notably as attorney of law in his own practice. He was a member of the Indiana State Bar Association and one of the founders of the Indiana Black Expo. He was involved in a host of other worthy civic and religious organizations. Mr. Hawkins passed away in February of this year at the age of 90. In this photo, we see store manager Bill Hawkins next to assistant manager Alfonso Hobbs. Al, the bishop, Hobbs, later became a store manager and then went on to forge a nationally recognized career as a radio personality, a recording artist, and an industry leader of the gospel music community. Al Hobbs passed away in 2014 at the age of 71. The chain opened its fourth store at 39th and Illinois in 1962. My father, seen here with my mother, decided to keep this store open till midnight in order to better compete with a standard supermarket located across the street. Note the error on the sign. It should read open 7 a.m. to 12 a.m., not p.m. The building, originally built as an auto dealership, had a huge basement and was designated as a public fallout shelter by the U.S. Civil Defense Department during the Cuban Missile Crisis. In this photo on the left, we see on the far left my father's partner, Harry Frankovitz. He's standing next to my mother, who was working as a cashier. At the far right, filling a grocery sack, is head cashier Joyce White. In this photo, left to right, we see my mother, Gazella, an unnamed produce manager, an unnamed assistant manager, the store's head cashier, Joyce White, the store manager, Gene Ostertag, one of the partners, Zoli Weisz, my dad, another partner, Harry Frankovitz. Ostertag was the first openly gay store manager in Indiana. This shot depicts 1960s-style diversity in the 7-Eleven meat department. The photo shows my father next to a Christian deacon, a Jewish journeyman meat cutter, a Russian immigrant, 2 black butchers from Alabama, and of course 2 beef forequarters. In the middle photo, we see Harry Frankovitz's wife, Hensha, inspecting the banana table. And in this photo, there's head cashier Joyce White assisting my father's best friend, Latvian Holocaust survivor and New York life insurance agent, Uri Joffe. In this picture, my father is assisting shoppers in the produce aisle at the 39th and Illinois Street store. While his partners supervised the meat, bakery, deli, and dry grocery operations, Zoli's first love was produce. It was, and it remains, the most profitable sector of the supermarket. In 1965, the company opened its 5th store at 28th and Capitol. It was at this location that Lipo Frankovitz had opened his first open-air market in the early 1930s, when the horse for his produce peddling cart suddenly died. The location evolved into the first full-blown supermarket in Indianapolis, featuring bass carts and self-service shopping. The building was still owned by the Frisch family when 7-Eleven opened there, but it was soon purchased by the company's real estate division. And then came the big split. The partnership is dissolved. By the summer of 1965, the 3 partners, Harry, Bensi, and Zoli, had opened 5 stores inside of abandoned inner-city Kroger supermarkets. The stores were flourishing, and the men were looking for a 6th location. Harry was in charge of dry groceries, Bensi ran the meat and dairy operations, and Zoli handled the chain's major profit center, fresh produce. The partnership was structured as a subchapter S corporation. This meant they had to have officers, a board of directors, keep minutes, all of that corporate stuff. The only 3 stockholders were the partners themselves, so they constituted the entire board of directors. The 3 had decided they would take turns being president, a title they regarded strictly as a formality to comply with laws pertaining to corporate compliance. The president also had the task of signing all the checks. 1965 was Zoli's turn in the barrel. This narrative, laying out the details of the breakup of the partnership, is continued in the comments section of this video. For the next several years, my father operated the growing business on his own. He soon realized he needed a trusted business partner with whom he could engage in income sharing. By the early 1970s, he located a bright young man, fresh out of college, and made him an offer he could not refuse. That young man was me. Here I am, fresh out of college, and a few days later, the budding business executive. In this first photo, we are celebrating the grand opening of our 6th store at 34th and Fairfield in 1971. Left to right, we see the head of our security, Sergeant Donahue. There's me, next to electrician Meyer Bronicky, my mother, Gizzy, store manager Gordon Myring, attorney Herb Backer, and my father, Zoli. In this shot, I'm helping to do some of the decorating work, hanging up some crepe paper for the grand opening. And in this photo, we see the head of our headquarters, office manager, Laura Cassidy. Here we see my parents preparing for the grand opening of our 6th store in 1971. And in this shot, there's my father, Zoli, with our company's trusted attorney, Herbert Backer, Esquire. Here I am at my father's 60th birthday celebration in 1975. Zoli and I worked together successfully as business partners for 25 years. Here's my father's office at our Willowbrook Park headquarters in 1975. In this photo, taken at a company annual meeting in 1974, you see my parents standing in the back, and then head butchers Jerry Maynard on the left and Albus Maynard on the right. In 1976, we purchased the former Sutho Suds building. Sutho Suds was a maker of laundry detergent. The building was located at 2201 East 46th Street near Keystone Avenue. It became our headquarters and our warehouse facility. In 1981, we won a major federal court victory in a landmark trademark case against the Southland Corporation, who wished to operate under the 7-Eleven name in our market, although we had been using that name since 1957 and had prior rights. They appealed the decision, but it was upheld on appeal. In 1984, I testified before the Federal Trade Commission as I led the fight against the predatory pricing practices of corporate chains wishing to enter our market by driving independent grocers out of business. In 1987, we celebrated the company's 30th anniversary with promotions that drove our sales up to record levels. Our success was due entirely to our exceptional team of dedicated employees. Here you see some of their names. 7-Eleven is made up of these fine people. In 1993, for a variety of personal reasons, I sold my interest in the company and began on a new career path. Family member Isaiah Izzy Cooperstein took over operations in the mid-1990s. After selling the rights to the 7-Eleven name in 1999, Izzy changed the name of the company to Double 8 Foods. The name was chosen in honor of he and his wife's wedding anniversary, August the 8th. My father passed away on March the 8th, 2002, after a long struggle with IPF, idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. He continued working at 7-Eleven Double 8 Foods until the very end. Double A Foods thrived for more than a dozen years as one by one other independent grocers closed up shop in Indianapolis, such as Joe O'Malley's, Richard's Market Basket, Waltz Foods, Atlas, Preston, Mr. Deeds, and so on and so on. Finally, faced with insurmountable barriers from national competitors and government agencies, Double Eight began closing stores in 2013. In July 2015, the 4 remaining stores closed their doors for good. Sadly, Isaiah Cooperstein passed away in April 2020 from complications due to COVID 19 at the age of 70. And thus marked not only the end of a unique, community minded small business, but also the end of an era of independent owner operated retail food stores. I am proud of the role my family played in delivering fairly priced groceries, financial services, and employment to the underserved areas of Indianapolis. But I am even more proud of the difference we were able to make in the lives of those many fine people who worked for us. And as the memory of this business fades into the sands of time, I hope that this presentation will serve to chronicle the fact that its success was the result of the hard work performed by many of us, but it was primarily due to the ingenuity, perseverance, intelligence, and the compassion of one man, my father, Zoltan Weisz. May his memory continue to be a blessing to all of us. The end. Thank you for your attention.